Before this one has to go out in a crate to Indiana, I wanted to show you my latest hand-carved slate gravestone from the shop of David Gillespie here in South Carolina. Before we go any farther, if you like 18th century gravestones, or you're a taphophile or a gravestone nerd, I would ask you to please consider subscribing. So this example here behind me is quite a production. It takes a lot to carve. It took a long time to carve this one, but it was one that was one that's near and dear to my own heart. So we'll go over some of the outline of it here. So this example here is a Lamson style stone from 1723, the original. And so the soul effigy up top is a little bit unusual or different from your typical Lamson, because, as you know, in the 1720s, a lot of the tympanums were of death heads, and so you typically see soul effigies, which, for those who don't know, a soul effigy is a figure of a human's face with wings to show the flight of the soul upwards into eternity, upward to heaven. And so it's unusual to see a soul effigy, in my opinion, in the 1720s, but that's what this original example depicted. Also, by the 1720s, it's very unusual to see lowercase letters on gravestones. It was at that transition period between majuscules or uncials, uppercase letters, and them using lowercase letters. So this is I try to use that as to show that they were using lowercase or minuscule letters by this point in time. Typically, you don't see soul effigies, in my opinion, until after the Great Awakening, which the Great Awakening is 1730s and early 40s. So that became the predominant stylistic feature you see after the Great Awakening. But of course, the original of this was 1723, so it was a little bit on the edge of setting a new standard. Also, with the Lamsons, as you can see, they were masters at catching light. All of these little carvings here are completely straight out of their vocabulary, so to speak, and they all are masters of catching light. These little feathers here are beautiful. Not that I carved it, but the fact that that's how they carved it. They carved it to catch light. I mean, there's so many facets that just capture light, create a highlight or a shadow, as well as these other elements arranged around the border here. So going down the side, this is what I call the target, but this is the caps, as we call it. And you have a stylized fig running up and down here, and then just these scrolls. I particularly like the double border here. If you just had this on the side, going straight to the surface where the letters are carved, it would look, I think, good enough. But they used these double borders, which I tried to carve those as best I could, like they did, and to me that just adds another. It just makes it beefier. It just really makes it solid. So I love these double borders that the Lamsons love to carve. Also, I abbreviated the name William the way they would have abbreviated names in the 18th century. You see the W, the little M, and the period directly below, right in the middle. Also use those type of abbreviations here and put the period directly under the middle, as you see here, 95th or 25th, which to me just adds a nice little flair to it that you don't see in modern gravestones. Of course, I always try to sign each stone at the lower right hand side, D. Gillespie, South Carolina. I do that because in the future, maybe 100, 200 years down the road, somebody may have interest to see who carved this one. So I wish that all the 18th century stones were signed, but unfortunately they're not. So I do this for the researchers coming up in the future, Lord's willing. Now I want you to see how, this is how I carve. I've got one source of light coming down, which creates these shadows and highlights. So this is how the stone will look only 2 times of the day. When the sun comes or goes, it'll give it this effect. So I want you to see what it looks like, the whole entire stone, with one source of light at a sharp angle, about like this here, at about a 15-degree angle. Now this is with frontal light, so you can see the letters better. And so in this circumstance here, I'll show you the little tail on the top of the S here. I do that. I like to do that. That's something that I do. I got that directly from William Codner from the 1730s up in Boston. And you see it again in the S here in his age. If there was a C in this stone, I would have it at the top of the C as well. But little things like that say, I'm not computer generated, I'm hand drawn. All these letters are hand drawn, carved by hand with a chisel and mallet only. I don't have any mechanical device that I use for any of this process. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed being with me in my shop this evening just to see the next stone going out. Please consider subscribing and give us a like, a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. And if you have any comments or any questions, please feel free to write those down below. Thank you very much for watching. It means a lot. Also, it's very rare that I have 2 in the shop at the same time, and especially 2 of the early New England style. So, just for some eye candy, there's the 1680s style from Boston, and then the 1720s style from Boston, Charlestown.